Today, I will be explaining what is the philosophy of education and the importance of it. First, let's define what a philosophy is. A philosophy is defined as a search for the wisdom of life, besides an attempt to understand the universe as a whole. And according to John Dewey, in 1916, philosophy may be defined as the general theory of education. Amar al-Talbi in 1993 stated that philosophy dictated what the human being ought to learn in order to be in tune with its own epoch, to learn intelligently in society, and to be a citizen, bringing benefit both to himself and to the community. Hence, the importance of education. It is the aim of education which takes precedence. Only then comes the means to realize these aims. In other words, philosophy is the starting point for curriculum development, as stated by Dewey. On the other hand, Tanner and Tanner in 1980 pointed out that the term philosophy is often used by teachers and administrators to convey their common sense outlook on educational and curricular matters. The philosophy of education deals with how children should be educated, what they should be educated in, and what the ultimate purpose of education should be for society. This is an often neglected field of philosophy, and when it is addressed, it tends to be only in educational programs designed to train teachers. In this context, it is part of the training when teachers are learning to teach. For religious theists, the philosophy of education can often be tightly integrated with theology and religious indoctrination in order to instill religious values, doctrines, and commitment at a very young age. Let's go ahead and speak about the person that I mentioned earlier, John Dewey. John Dewey is known as the modern father of experiential education. Dewey is lauded as the greatest educational thinker of the 20th century. His theory of experience continues to be much read and discussed not only within education, but also in psychology and philosophy. Dewey's views continue to strongly influence the design of innovative educational approaches, such as in outdoor education, adult training, and experiential therapies. In the 1920s and 30s, John Dewey became famous for pointing out that the authoritarian, strict, preordained knowledge approach of modern traditional education was too concerned with delivering knowledge and not enough with understanding students' actual experiences. Dewey became the champion or philosophical father of experiential education, or as it was then referred to as progressive education. But he was also critical of completely free student-driven education, because students often don't know how to structure their own learning experiences for their own maximum benefit. Why do so many students hate school? It seems as obvious, but it's also a very ignored question. Even today, students still hate school. Dewey said that an educator must take into account the unique differences between each student. In other words, no two students are alike. Each person is different genetically and in terms of past experiences. Even when a standard curricula is presented using established pedagogical methods, each student will have a different quality of experiences. Thus, teaching and curriculum must be designed in ways that allow for each and such different of individual students. For Dewey, education also a broader social purpose, which was to help people become more effective members of a democratic society. Dewey argued that the one-way delivery style of the authoritarian schooling does not provide a good model for life in a democratic society. Instead, students need educational experiences which enable them to become valued, equal, and responsible members of society. The most common misunderstanding about Dewey is that he was simply supporting progressive education. Progressive education, according to Dewey, was a wild swing in the philosophical pendulum against traditional educational methods. In progressive education, freedom was the rule, with students being relatively unconstrained by the educator. The problem with progressive education, said Dewey, is that freedom alone is no solution. Learning needs a structure and order and must be based on a clear theory of experience, not simply the whim of teachers or students. Thus, Dewey proposed that education be designed on the basis of a theory, listen to me now, a theory of experience. We must understand the nature of how humans have the experiences that they do in order to design effective education. In this respect, Dewey's theory of experience rested on two central tenets: continuity and interaction. Let's look at continuity. Continuity refers to the notion that humans are sensitive to or are affected by their experience. Humans survive more by learning from experience after they are born than they do many other animals who rely primarily on pre-wired instinct. In humans, education is critical for providing people with the skills to live in society. Dewey argued that we learn something from every experience, whether it be positive or negative, and one's accumulated learned experience influence the nature of one's future experiences. Thus, every experience in some way influences all potential future experiences for an individual. Continuity refers to this idea that each experience is stored and carried on into the future, whether one likes it or not. let's look at interaction. Interaction builds upon the notion of continuity and explains how past experience interacts with the present, listen to me now, the present situation to create one's present experience. Dewey's hypothesis is that your current experience can be understood as a function of your past or stored experiences, which interacting with the present situation to create an individual's experience. This explains the one man's meat is another man's poison maxim. Okay? Any situation can be experienced in profoundly different ways because of unique individual differences. Okay? Listen to this. One student loves school. Another student hates school. This is important for educators to understand. While they can't control a student's past experiences, they can try to understand those past experiences so that better educational situations can be presented to the students. And ultimately, all a teacher has control over is the design of the present situation. The teacher with good insight, listen here, the teacher with good insight into the effects of past experiences which students bring with them better enables the teacher to provide quality education which is relevant and meaningful for the students. Okay? So, in closing, I will go back to where I began. Philosophy is considered one of the most important components of both the education system and the curriculum. In historical perspective, different education philosophies have in different aspects from the point of view curriculum, teaching methods, classroom management, evaluation, and role of the teacher can be seen. As a matter of fact, the education philosophies reflect social, economical, and political aspects of society in which they are applied. Therefore, it is possible to discuss education philosophies with social, economical, and political orders and properties. So, the answer to the question, which philosophy is best, comes from your head and your heart and what you believe in. So, the best answer to the question, if your head and your heart is in the right place, everybody is an educational philosopher. Thank you very much.